sell at retail, I should be upping my price and I should be paying more. I know it bothers me every year. Look, we do our cost of production, we know things, and we have to get paid for what we do. But a bale of hay, I don't think has changed the price since the 1970s, right? It's $2 a bale or whatever. It's like fuel's gone up, everything's gone up, but it's still that's all you pay for a bale of hay. So it's that different thing. Is just I sold hay for $2 last year. I'll sell it for $2 this year. And it's understanding that those costs and that the cost of getting the food to market is more expensive, and people I feel that are willing to pay to know that story or to know where their food is coming from. But it's to get that knowledge out there. I really will echo the end of the cheap food, and there's a lot of people that would say that organic food is expensive. But I always say, and we always really do truly believe that organic food isn't expensive. Organic food just reflects the true cost of it. Because we are looking after the soil, we're looking after buffer zones and the riparian zones, and we're looking after that it's the cost of bringing food to your table. So it's a different way of looking at it, but it's true there. And then the other thing that kind of sparked me was just marketing. And today, everything is about marketing, and a new buzzword will bring a whole new array and a whole new price level of food to come just to hit on new skins and new ideas. So I mean, you have it here with the distribution and the retail, but marketing, I think, is a large part of that too, and that it can sway people one way or the other. And I mean, the free range, and there's so many different terms that are out there and different definitions for different terms. I mean, I feel that people are overwhelmed and confused in some of the marketing terminology and lingo that is out there. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's all that I could. And you had said it also with the food waste, and I think that is a major problem that with society today is the amount of food that is wasted. It's continually said in my presence about GMOs, that GMOs is going to save the world and feed the world. And I mean, you brought the article here and they've debated it whether it's actually yielding more. But I don't think that's the argument that we should be having. It's the food waste argument that we should be having. We can feed the world if we reduce that 40% waste and we increased and changed our distribution system, that we could get the bountiful food that we're producing to the people that need it. And it just, I feel it needs to completely flip on its head, the distribution system, to be able to get all the great food that we do produce to the people. With that, I will have a seat and allow for more questions at the end.
Pretty good off-the-cuff reaction to a speaker. You know, when I teach island history and talk about the economic history of the island and how we tried to cope since 1873 with stagnation in our economy, one of the key sorts of lessons that we learned was the necessity of adding value. Value added is the key to be, to be a producer in a small place who can't undercut in the marketplace in terms of price. We can't produce masses of goods. We can be the first, or the best, or the only, or we can enhance the value of what we do by adding the value and then being able to market it. And I think that all three speakers thus far, Mark has very cleverly set up in the comments that he selectively made from that larger issue, the speakers that we have. And now moving on to, from the production end in the field to the table in the kitchen, to Colleen Walton, my colleague in the Department of Applied Human sciences. I never get that right. When my sister was at UPEI, it was the home economics department, and I'm still suffering from a regressive inability to memorize the new name of the department. Colleen is new to the department, but she's been in the food business for nearly 20 years, working with quality assurance, food safety, production, or the development of products, with the Food Trust, and what an incredible name, playing on the meaning of trust as a company, but also the importance of being able to trust in your food. Colleen, in her own department, has been very much concerned with food insecurity. And I know, to me, as an ordinary islander, it's been a revelation to learn about the extent of that insecurity. It is not literally starvation. It's the lack of access to good food and healthy food and nutritious food. It's the choices we make, and it's linked to economics. And I'd like to give the floor to her to talk a little bit more and with some expertise on this issue.
Thanking everyone for being here and thanking the panel. I just would like to, as I was getting ready for this talk and thinking about the forum, I thought about how did I end up here in multiple levels here. So I recall sort of early experiences in public school and in university that really stimulated my interest in the importance of good food in good health and how it would be very challenging to have good health if you didn't have good access to good food. So, as things go, I then spent about 20 years working in the conventional food system and became quite disappointed with its, and I say general disregard for human and environmental health and social equity, social justice. So I did join Food Trust at one point when that was starting, and I felt that I had found my home as a food scientist dealing with high quality food from sustainable systems. So as that demise happened, I then really felt I need to reposition my career and join the movement to really create a situation that's more conducive to sustainable agriculture and good health. And how I envisioned that whole system was where people are aware of the impact of their food choices on health, the environment, and the economy, and that people place a high value on that sustainability in that food system, and that they're motivated and able to act in a way that maximizes those true positive impacts. So really accepting, like Mark just said, accepting the true cost of food. So in the last few years, the term food literacy has come to represent really that situation. So being food literate means that a person really understands that our current food system is linked to a host of problems, including poor diets, chronic disease, food insecurity, soil depletion, climate change, and violation of workers' rights, and that's just to name a few. So it's really important that we work as a society to increase food literacy and really ultimately increase the value that's placed on human health, personal health, the environment, and social equity. And really food literacy, and kind of like Mark was talking about, food literacy is a consumer who's asking for this quality of food from this type of system. So we need people to be food literate in order to make those positive changes for the sustainability. I am an optimist, so I do believe that more and more people are concerned about the issues stemming from our food choices and the conventional food system. I still think there's an awful lot to do to expand food literacy and get us to a position where we have the consumer pull. So in my position at UPEI, I'm really quite honored to have the opportunity in foods and nutrition to, in some small way, I hope, to influence students who I believe are the next generation, so that they would think more broadly about their food choices and become advocates and leaders in the development of a more sustainable food system. This past summer, I was fortunate enough with Sister Sue at the Chaplaincy Center at UPEI to get a small wellness grant, and we put in some little gardens on campus by the Chaplaincy Center, had kind of random students from random disciplines helping out with the gardening, and it was surprising to me how few knew what plants looked like and how few had ever touched a plant and understood what a green pepper really looked like on a plant, never mind, the actual vine of it in a store. So that was quite surprising to me, and I hope that we get to continue that, because I believe that is helping to build food literacy, and not just with students in my department, but across the campus. So I do believe that there's a strong need for education to enhance food literacy, and also for individuals to regain the ability to plan and prepare nutritious meals. So the idea of food skills, we're really 2 generations removed from a time when, I'm going to say mothers, had the food skills to pass on to their sons and daughters. And in essence, a lack of these food skills will lead to a dependency on the highly processed convenience foods that are typically cheap, and they're typically filled with fat, sugar, salt, and high calories. And they're really those key culprits in our poor health. So it's a really risky position that we're in, where our kids, and we see it in our department, many of the parents don't have the skills to teach the kids. The kids come in, they've never cracked an egg. I could go on. Anyways, it's a risky position, and it leaves people dependent on the food system, as it is, to supply good quality and nutritious foods at a reasonable price. And from where I sit, that's not what's happening right now. It's going to take a concerted vision and effort and resources to reincorporate food literacy and food skills into our educational curriculum. I think that's where it needs to be. The benefits of food literacy and food skills will be positive on children's health, individual wellness, productivity, and really help to address some of the food waste issues. If I know what to do with my food, I can actually prevent a lot of that waste in my fridge and in my house. So really those benefits are further extended to dealing with the societal consequences of the high rates of chronic disease relating to these poor dietary habits, which are stemming from a lack of skill, and also the idea of our increasing healthcare costs related to chronic disease. So we really need food literacy in order to turn the corner towards a more sustainable food system that's respecting the human and environmental health and also social justice. So that brings me to my second key reflection on a sustainable food system, and that's the one of household food security, which we've heard a little bit about. This is the condition that exists when one or more members of a household do not have access to the variety or quantity of foods that they need due to a lack of money. So renowned food security researcher Dr. Valerie Tersak, she's been here a couple of times. In 2014, she found that 16.2% of PEI households reported some level of food insecurity. This represents about 9,000 families or households and almost 22% of island children. And as Mark so strongly articulated, that it is a direct result of poverty. We also find that researchers have demonstrated people who experience food insecurity also tend to report poor or fair health. They have the inability regularly to not perform key activities at home or work or school due to multiple health conditions, and many suffer from major depression. In 2014, Dr. Jennifer Taylor, who's also in applied human sciences, and I, with a UPEI honors student, did some research work with food insecure women in PEI. And the poor health status of these women, aligned with this other research. And we found that 45% of the women that we interviewed had been diagnosed by their doctors with anxiety and depression, and 75% were at high risk for chronic diseases such as cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and strokes. So really like a hard situation. So when I look at the situation with sustainable agriculture and food insecurity at this juncture, I feel there's an unfortunate disconnect. And this was a disconnect that was reported by some researchers in the US as it related to community food projects and strategies for sustainability. And the researchers really concluded that the production costs for small farmers are higher, and these costs can't be recovered from low-income purchasers unless those purchases are somehow publicly or privately subsidized. So in PEI, over the last few years, we've seen an enormous increase in the number of farmers markets, in various community-supported agriculture initiatives, and these are serving, I'm going to say, a more food-literate population, people who are informed, who do care, who want to know, and somewhat, I'm going to say, also more affluent. It's certainly supporting PEI's smaller farmers in rural communities. However, for food-insecure families, the lack of insufficient income to purchase even the most basic basket of nutritious foods really precludes any notion that they would be changing buying habits to support the rural economy or giving high priority to sustainable food systems. So in conclusion, I think there's a great opportunity now for government to support community food projects that simultaneously support small farmers and marginalized consumers. There's a broader need for a policy environment to support the move to more sustainable agriculture, but accompanied by that need to develop food literacy among the general public to ultimately enhance the value that's placed on food from a sustainable system. And I really believe we're at a good time. I think the benefits of the movement and looking at it from a systems point of view, we'll see as positive environmentally, economically, and socially just system. And longer term, we'll see that in our public health system and savings in public health dollars and quality of life. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Colleen. The speakers this evening have really done a dovetailing, I think, in terms of some of the issues, some of the challenges. I think they highlight one of the key lessons, which is that food strategies and a sustainability approach to agriculture is going to require a series of collaborations across industries and different levels of society and the public and the private sector. It won't work unless there is a strategy, as we've been working on for the states. That's just my opinion. It's time for your opinion. Thank you for your patience. Thank you again to our speakers. And I'm going to open the floor to questions. I'll attempt to try to make sure everyone gets a chance to speak. And if you have a question for a specific individual, or if you want all of them to answer, just let me know. Yes?
I just want to make a comment. It's not particularly a question. I'm a faculty member in engineering, and I'm an agriculture engineer by background. So the topic of today's this workshop is sustainable agriculture. From an engineering perspective, I do believe that we need to optimize our machine operations. Like, we need to make our machines intelligent, that they can sense what's the soil look like, what the plant requirement is, and then we can apply and make decisions accordingly. As Mark mentioned, site-specific management. Right now, what's happening all over the globe is that the farmers, they apply inputs uniformly, whether it is a fertilizer, whether it is a pesticide, or any other kinds of inputs, lime or any other kind. But the requirement, as in Atlantic Canada especially, we have like gender to severe topography. If we go with the same rate, there is runoff, there is nutrient leaching, and we are contaminating the water bodies and groundwater. So if we can make our machines efficient by using some sensors, so we can conserve the soil quality, we can optimize the water resources, we can minimize the nutrient runoff and leaching. At the same time, we can move towards the sustainable agriculture. And by 2050, we need to double our food requirement. So that's another challenge we all are facing. And then with the increase in population, the agricultural land is shrinking. So that means we need to optimize our resources. At the same time, we need to have enough food so that we can feed the growing population in coming 2 decades or so.
sustainable engineering. We have a new school of sustainable engineering. That's why. Would anyone like to comment on that or to amplify it? Or anyone in the audience? Jim Randall?
I just had another question. I can just touch on that if you don't mind.
Sure, jump
In Dalhousie Ag Campus, in cooperation with Oxford Blueberries a couple of years ago, there was a blueberry sprayer that was developed that has an optical eye in the front that recognizes when there's a plant that requires herbicide. So rather than completely spraying the field, what happens now is the eye recognizes when there's a so it reduces the input significantly using the technology that they developed at the AC. Also can be developed or adapted for other crops as well. So in terms of blueberries, it's often just patches of weeds interspersed with blueberries. So they recognize that they use that technology to reduce the spray significantly. So that is being.
So I did my MSc and PhD from the Faculty of Agriculture, Dalhousie. So I've been involved with that project. We have a fertilizer spreader for wild blueberries, which only fertilize in plant area. Then we have the capability to change the rates based on the need of the soil. And also, as we mentioned about the sprayer, so we have ultrasonic sensor-based sprayer, which detects the tall weed and just target the weeds. And also we have camera-based sprayer when the weeds are at the same growth stage where the plants are, so we can differentiate between the images and we can identify where the weeds are and we can target. In the same way, the fungicide we can apply only in the plants. So here in PEI, so my next target is to target potato industry because the PEI is big for potatoes. So we want to develop some technology similar to the machine vision and sensors so that we can have intelligent machines to apply those inputs.
Shall we? You want to Jim? Oh, and then
I'd like to ask each of the speakers to respond to this. Let's assume that you were talking directly to the Premier of our province, and you had an opportunity to implement one strategy that would make the province a more sustainable agricultural system. What would that one thing be? And Mark, you're not laughing, you're not getting out of this as well. You could answer it too.
anyone want to jump in?
The one thing that I would do right off the bat, and this is mind-blowing news there, but I would link agriculture into the healthcare department in one and make them work their budget out so that you would reduce healthcare by feeding them with good healthy food.
I think the province desperately needs a real land use strategy and plan. The way the proliferation of, how do I put it, crap on the landscape of this province is just unbelievable. And I don't know how to do this myself, but I would try to link it with a reform of the Water Act. I think if one could join a sane water policy with a sane land use strategy to preserve and enhance not only agricultural land, but the environmental overlay on the land, doing that thing, joining those things. I guess it's the same thing as joining and seeing things connected. Right now, everything is in a silo. And this is not just PEI's problem. It's government all over. But I would urge a real reform of the Water Act together with a real land use plan and strategy.
Systems approach.
Forgive me?
A systems approach.
Yes, absolutely. Figure out what you want to do. Get growth-inducing infrastructure the hell out of agricultural land because it changes markets. And some of the dumb things that I've been seeing with road construction in the province should fall where it matters.
The whole area around land use is it's been an ongoing discussion for many generations, but nothing's really happening, I don't think. And, I don't blame farmers for deciding they want to, or need to sell off part of their parcel for the retirement or whatever. I don't blame them for doing that. Our policy, at least I think my wife's still in agreement with it, is that we don't sell land. We live in Brackley Beach, so and we have shore properties. And we've had many occasions for people wanting to buy those properties. But they have value to me too. So I want, like I said, I still keep in hope that some of my children may want to farm. Once we sell, if we were to sell our farm, we could never, ever, ever afford to buy it back in any way, shape, or form. So it's a very big decision that some farmers have to make. Well, all farmers, I guess, have to make it sometimes. We die before the decision is made. It can't happen. I look at the Brackley Point Road, too, in particular. It's just, I expect there will be a day when there will be a 60 limit all the way up to Brackley Beach. It's just, there's not many fields between Charlottetown and Brackley Beach anymore. And I think I use the word rural, we're not rural, we're not urban, but we're rural.
Colleen, did you want to?
I'm going to sort of jump springboard off of what Mark Bernard said. If we're going to put together agriculture and health, let's get the education department in there and start teaching our kids about healthy food, where our food comes from, and create that food literate population going forward, making sure that they're well fed so they can learn and they aren't unhealthy coming out of it. I think it is all about the system, and it is about the interlinkage and getting through those silos across government departments is very challenging.
I'm just going to make one observation as an historian of PEI. The land in question on Prince Edward Island, which everyone is sick of hearing about in island history, which lasted for a century, involving breaking up of the landmass of the island into large estates, which were in a kind of a leasehold, renting farms. For a century, islanders struggled to free themselves from the leasehold kind of estate. And the biggest argument against that was it was a violation of the rights of property for government to intervene and break up the system of leasehold. And that argument worked for a century. And it's the biggest impediment we have right now to having a land use structure in place for the province is government is reluctant to infringe on the rights of property owners, to do with their property what they see fit. We may not have that option in the future, but it's ironic that those same islanders are proud of the struggle to free themselves from those that claim the rights of property. Yeah. But, another question. Here. Oh, sorry, this gentleman, and then back to you. He had his hand up earlier.
Well, I had another question. One thing that Barry said made me think of the idea of land trusts. And, so many farmers have their entire retirement plan in their land. They're planning to sell that or sell a portion of it and have their retirement. That's where their savings are. So if land developers or people who are speculating about the value of land in the future, if they're the ones who are willing to buy land wholesale from a farmer, and that's their retirement option, and there's no young farmers or their kids aren't interested in buying all that land, they're really left with no choice. So the idea of a land trust would be that the government would then not be this entity that would buy the land outright, 100%, but it would give the farmer a livelihood, it would give the farmer an annual livelihood, a form of retirement plan. And in trust, the government would hold that and save it for farmers in the future to stop it from being used for land development.
And there was something like that back in the early stages of the development plan. It did work for people. First, landowners who wanted to get into agriculture, they engaged and they filled the bill, if you will, and gave them an income that they could reasonably comfortably in the retirement years. The question I would raise is, What does PEI look like if we have 250,000 people? I think Charlottetown and other areas need to grow up rather than grow down.
If you'll allow, we'll come to this gentleman and then back to you.
At Gulf Shore School in Rustico, there's a teacher there that is showing the children how to grow a garden. They have a garden outside the classroom, showing the children how to process the food, and they're eating it. I think that sort of educational thing will take the fear out of that children might have with raw food, but also, of course, it's a wonderful education in what food is all about. I just wanted to take off from what you said about educating children, and I think that's a really good way to do it, where you have the kids right there growing the food and then processing and eating it. And I also want to mention that land use planning and strategy is something I've been involved in to a degree and watching closely on PEI for nearly 40 years. And the progress is unbelievably slow. The key is education. I don't want to criticize the farmers too much. I've worked for a number of them, but I think they have a hard time seeing the future. And if they could be educated to that a little more, I think they buy into land use planning and strategy. Thank you.
Can I note that Maine has a very robust program called Agriculture in the Classroom, and schools are rewarded for developing school gardens, and they use it for science and biology. A number of years ago, I had the opportunity to abridge in paperback The Classic History of Agriculture in New England, a book by Howard Russell called The Long Deep Furrow. And you get a hernia if you do it, and they needed it. And I learned an incredible amount. During the American Civil War, almost every loaf of bread consumed by a Union soldier was grown in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Northern New England was the breadbasket of the Union. And that knowledge, that education, that agricultural knowledge actually vanished as everything moved west to Ohio and then Kansas and so forth. I'm now doing an abridgment of a classic history of Maine agriculture, and it's going to be in paperback, and it will be free for the agriculture in the classroom program. I want Maine students to know that Kennebec County in Maine gave the name to Kennebec County in Idaho, and they brought with them Maine potatoes to make Idaho the capital of potato production. But it happened first. The Bird's Eye was in Maine first, and any number of things, so that kids understand the incredible history, rich history of what farmers did and what the food sector did. I can't underscore more what education, the power of education and what it could do, and what it has done. And I think you're absolutely right. But to see these schools have school gardens and to use the garden as a biological laboratory for biology classes, it's just stunning. And when they see insects and they can, learn it's living biology in front of them, and that's a great program in Maine.
It's amazing to know when I query my students to see which of them are from the farm, and typically 1 or 2 per class. So you're right about people not encountering agriculture on a first-hand basis and animals. Education does extend to the farmers as well. Fewer as they are, 700 or so probably. More than that on the tax form. But the number of people that actually farm is probably more like 700. Ian, do you want to jump on something, and then we're going to come back to you, because you've been very patient. Ian, and then you, and then
Quick question. I think Mark Bernard is right to the extent that I think consumer demand can pull farmers and farming in the direction that many of us want to see it go, probably much more quickly than government can push farmers in that direction. And to that extent, I remember the last time I heard Mark, you speaking down at Orwell Corner, you were talking about the idea that within supermarkets in Maine, that there would be several rows that would be dedicated to local production at fair market prices, which I thought was brilliant. And I'm just wondering, did that program in fact get in place? And
it's in place, and it's grown incredibly. What I did learn, because I've had a hand in some of it, our sweet corn every summer, this is crazy in Maine, comes from Georgia and Florida. What we've been able to provide the supermarkets with insurance so that if a Maine producer of sweet corn can't fulfill his or her obligation, they will have enough money to then go into the marketplace to secure that from Florida and Georgia. But they now have Maine sweet corn. We grow incredibly sweet corn. Let me say one more thing, that I'm on the board of a thing called FINE. It's called Food Farm Institution in New England. We just got the board of trustees of the University of Maine system. We have 7 institutions in the UMaine system to lay out in the next contract, which a firm called Sodexo won, that by the next year, 17, 20% of the food Sodexo will serve on every campus of the University of Maine system will be Maine grown and raised seafood or farm food. And they cannot use fluid milk, and they cannot use white bread in that 20%. We're working now with